Hi, my name is Joe Cruitt, and I am going to be presenting on measles today. So I'm going to start off by giving a brief history of measles. So the measles virus is genetically similar to rinderpest virus, which is a virus that is found in cattle. So it's thought that measles first entered the human population when humans were interacting closely with cattle, probably about 5,000 to 10,000 years ago. So there's no historical evidence for this, like there's nothing written down of the first cases of measles, but it's our best hypothesis for when measles virus entered the human population. So before the introduction of the vaccine, measles was the leading cause of childhood morbidity and mortality. It would cause about 2 million deaths every year before the introduction of the vaccine. So actually recently, there were a couple of outbreaks of the measles virus. One of the more popular outbreaks was there was an outbreak in Disneyland in 2015 where about 150 cases of measles virus were found. More recently, in 2019, there was actually a large spike in measles cases. So there were about 1,200 cases of measles just in the year 2019. For some reference, in 2020, there were only 13 cases of measles reported. In 2018, there were about 300, so a little more, but definitely a lot less than 1,200. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about the pathology of measles virus. So it is a non-segmented negative sense respiratory RNA virus, which is spread through coughing and sneezing and direct contact with the infected person. So the aerosolized small particles, which measles virus can be in from coughing or sneezing, they can be suspended in the air for up to 2 hours. So what that means is if there's an infectious person with measles who is coughing and sneezing in a room, and then they leave, that room is potentially infectious for up to 2 hours after they leave. So measles is in the family Paramyxoviridae, and it is in the genus Morbillivirus, and its species is just the measles virus. So measles has a reproduction rate, or a R0, of 14 to 18. So what this means is for every one person who is infectious with measles, they will infect 14 to 18 other people. And the incubation period for measles is 10 days. So the incubation period is the period from which the virus enters the person to the time which they are infectious. The longest incubation period that has been recorded is 23 days. The communicability phase, so the time when a person is actually infectious, like able to infect other people, it lasts from 4 days before and 4 days after the onset of the red rash that's characteristic of measles virus. And measles can also cause immune suppression. So it can cause immune suppression anywhere from a few weeks to a few months after being infected with the measles virus. In some cases, very rare cases, it's been seen that measles virus can cause immune suppression up to 2 to 3 years after being infected with the measles virus. Something interesting about immune suppression with the measles virus is that there is a hypothesis about how it causes immune suppression. So there are some people who are doing some studies and have a hypothesis that what measles will actually do is that it will completely wipe your immunological memory. So it'll cause something called immune amnesia. So what that means is the measles virus will actually take all the memory cells that you already had from previous diseases that you had, and it will get rid of them completely. So for example, if you were infected with smallpox as a child and you have all the memory cells that are capable of defending you against smallpox, if you get it later, measles virus will actually remove all those memory cells. So you will be able to be infected with smallpox again. Again, it's just a hypothesis. It's in very early stages of study, but I thought it's still something interesting to think about. So some symptoms of measles virus is first the fever. The second is a maculopapular rash, which is just raised or flat red bumps that appear on the skin, like the rash that you see the child has in the top right corner in that picture. Another symptom is a cough, and a fourth symptom is coryza, which is just an inflammation of the mucous membranes in the nose. You can get the most common cause of coryza is like cold. So if you feel your nose is like inflamed or stuffy during a cold, that's a little bit of coryza. Another thing symptomatic of measles is keratoconjunctivitis. So as you can see in the eye in the bottom picture, keratoconjunctivitis is an inflammation of the cornea and also the conjunctiva of the eye. Another symptom of measles is Koplik spots. So Koplik spots are little white spots that that are located on the inside of the mouth. So in the top left corner, you can see there's a picture of a mouth, and there are little tiny white spots just on the inside of the cheek. So Koplik spots are not present in every case of measles, but if you do see Koplik spots on the inside of a mouth, it's a pretty good indicator that that person does have measles. So some complications with measles virus. It can infect the respiratory tract. The leading cause of death with measles virus is pneumonia. Another thing that measles can cause is otitis media, which is an inflammation of the middle ear. This can cause a loss of hearing in people. The measles virus can also affect the GI tract, so it can cause stomatitis, which is an inflammation of the mouth, and it can also cause diarrhea. Like we were talking about earlier, measles can affect the eyes, causing that keratoconjunctivitis, that inflammation of the cornea and the conjunctiva. This can actually cause blindness in some severe cases. Measles will sometimes affect the central nervous system, causing encephalitis or a swelling of the brain, which leads to various neurological disorders. Measles can also sometimes cause seizures in certain cases. If the person who's infected with measles is pregnant, it can cause various complications such as premature birth or sometimes even a spontaneous abortion. As far as the mortality rates of measles go, in healthy children, the mortality rate for measles is about 2 in 1,000 cases of measles, so about 0.2% of people. However, in malnourished children or in children with vitamin A deficiencies, that mortality rate will go up to 1 in 4 cases, or even 25% of people will die if they are infected with measles. As far as management goes for measles, the easiest way to defend against it is supportive care. So stuff like fever management or hydration. Also making sure the person infected with measles is getting enough vitamin A, such as in dietary supplements. And then the main way to defend against measles, however, is vaccination. So there are a few different options for measles vaccination. So the first is just a single dose of just measles vaccine. More common in the United States are the MMR and MMRV vaccines. So what MMR stands for is measles, mumps, and rubella. So if you get that vaccine, it'll provide protection against all three. MMRV provides protection again for measles, mumps, rubella, but then it will also provide protection against varicella. So one dose of the MMR vaccine has been shown to be 95% effective for protecting against measles. And something interesting about vaccination is if a is you have to give the vaccine to children who are 6 months or older because the maternal antibodies will actually affect vaccination. So when the fetus is still inside of the mother, they will be passively acquiring antibodies from the mother. And some of those antibodies will likely be measles antibodies if the mother had already had measles or gotten vaccinated. So the child will have those antibodies for about the first 6 months of their life. And then after those 6 months are up, the amount of those measles antibodies will steadily go down. But during those first 6 months, you can't vaccinate the child, because if you vaccinate them, then the antibodies that they got from their mother, they will fight the vaccine, and then the vaccine won't stick. And then after the antibodies go away, the child will still be susceptible to measles. So the later a child receives the measles vaccine, the more effective it is. Usually we try to give children the measles vaccine in between 12 or 15 months after they've been born. As far as cost of vaccines, through a public foundation such as the CDC, a MMR vaccine only costs about $20.11, and the MMRV vaccine, through again a public foundation such as the CDC, it costs a little bit more. It costs about $114.25. Luckily, in developing countries, there's a foundation that is called the United Nations Children's Emergency Fund, and it actually provides single-dose measles vaccines for as low as 30 cents per dose. So, very good way to spread vaccines in developing countries. The last thing is just my references. So I used two main references to make this presentation. I used a journal article from JAMA Pediatrics and also a journal article from The Lancet. And the rest of my references are just references from the images I used. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this.